There comes a moment in life when you pause.
Not because you're lost in the past, but because something deep inside says, look again. Maybe it's late at night. Maybe you're flipping through an old journal or rewatching one of your older videos. And suddenly, you're face to face with a version of yourself you barely recognize. That's when the shift begins. You used to be the kind of person who never stopped talking. Not loud or obnoxious, just expressive. Always sharing stories, thoughts, emotions. Always narrating life as it unfolded. You believed that talking meant connecting, that being open meant being real. You had so much to say, and you thought that saying it all made you relatable, honest, approachable. And maybe, back then, it did. But as time moved forward, you began to realize your voice was filling all the space. So much so that you couldn't hear the world trying to speak back. Then came the heartbreak. Not the first, but the one that cracked you open in a different way. It taught you something no book or podcast could. You realized you had handed someone a map to break you. You had offered up your vulnerabilities, your patterns, your wounds, on a silver platter, thinking they'd handle them with care. But not everyone will treat your honesty as sacred. You'd always thought, I don't misuse people's stories, so why would they misuse mine? But the world doesn't always mirror your integrity. That heartbreak became a mirror, and in it, you saw the cost of overexposing your truth to someone who didn't earn it. So you stopped, not out of bitterness, not to build walls, but because something in you said, wait. You began to observe. You began to listen.
And in that quiet, something shifted. You started noticing things you'd never noticed before. How people speak with their eyes, how emotions echo in pauses, how truth often hides behind what's left unsaid. You stopped being the center of every conversation, and for the first time, you weren't trapped inside your head, thinking what to say next. You were just present. You discovered a whole world that had always been there, just waiting for you to hear it. You realized that less truly is more. When you stopped oversharing, you started conserving energy. When you started listening instead of talking, you became a little more mysterious, a little more grounded, a little more powerful. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally protected who you already were. Your spark didn't disappear. It simply stopped burning out for the wrong people. Now you speak only when it matters. You choose your words with care, and you share your world only with those who've earned their way in. You stopped giving strangers VIP access to your soul, and that changed everything. Over time, listening became your quiet superpower. You began noticing things others missed. You started hearing what people really meant, not just what they said. You picked up on patterns, subtext, unspoken fears. People felt safe around you, not because you had all the answers, but because you weren't trying to prove anything. You just listened, and that made them feel heard, maybe for the first time in a long time. You started seeing that people don't remember who spoke the most in a room. They remember who made them feel seen. Part 6. A practice, not perfection. Sure, there were days when old habits returned. Days when you found yourself rambling, oversharing, explaining more than necessary.
But now, you catch yourself. Now, you pause. You take a breath and remember. Observe. Be still. Be here. This isn't about becoming cold. This is about becoming conscious. You learned that in a world addicted to speaking, the rarest presence is the one who listens with intent. Because the more you speak, the more you offer. But when you listen, you learn. You've changed your life not by adding anything flashy, but by subtracting the noise, by stepping back, by watching, by simply being the kind of person who doesn't need to fill every silence to feel whole. And people notice, not because you shout the loudest, but because your presence is calm, certain, and rare. You've become someone who doesn't need to tell the world who you are, because now, the world can feel it. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You just need to listen. And in that silence, everything begins to unfold. Thanks for being here. If you felt a shift within, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more honest, reflective content just like this. Your growth journey deserves company.